All right. I believe we are live.
Hello.
Um,
Hello and welcome.
yeah, welcome to today's virtual write-in. It's February somehow already. I don't know how that happens.
Time passes fast and slow, you know?
Yeah.
It's like in a novel. Like sometimes you're reading the same scene forever, and then sometimes it's like 10 years later.
Sometimes I wish I could just do the little skipping over the boring parts of and then a little bit of time later.
What I really wish I could use that for is like the montage feature in like movies. Like I just want to be able to speak Spanish, after a montage of me looking at textbooks and then or like I want to learn karate in a montage. Like that would just be so useful for life if we could do that.
That would be pretty great.
So if you're just joining us, if you've never joined us, if you've forgotten who we are, we'll tell you right now. So you're here at our virtual write-in, and my name is Mariah. I'm one of the co-program directors at NaNoWriMo, and my pronouns are she, her.
And I'm Catherine. I'm the communications manager at NaNoWriMo, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them.
And you can definitely, in the chat, you could drop in where you're joining us from, and anything else you'd like to say. I'm especially interested in hearing from you all about what you're working on right now. Because in NaNoWriMo, like in November, we kind of assume, well, people are probably working on NaNoWriMo projects. But I don't know what everyone's doing right now. So drop it in.
Yeah.
And if your answer is like, LOL, nothing, like that's okay too. Because that happens. So also wanting to just bring up that it's the now what months here at NaNoWriMo. So if you don't know what that means, it's the, so I wrote a novel during November, now what? That question that we ask ourselves. So in January and February, we try to provide resources and tools to help you get started revising your novel draft. And people participate in different ways. Like you can look at the resources on our website, we'll drop in a link. We have this revision workbook that you can work through if you're ready for that. If you want more, you can set a personal writing goal around revising your novel on the NaNoWriMo site. Or we even have an official Now What challenge going on right now on the NaNoWriMo site. So you could accept that too. And in that official challenge, we're trying it out. We've never really done it before. So that official challenge is we're suggesting that you try to revise in these 28 days of February, the first 50 pages of your novel, but trying to revise them 3 times. So first draft, you already have a first draft, second draft, third draft, fourth draft, which makes about 150 pages total revised. And that's just because do you want to say?
Oh no, I was just going to say, and hopefully it'll get easier when you go back for the third or fourth draft, and you won't have to change quite as much.
And it's just good practice. So like maybe this novel is one that you want to revise all the way through a bunch of times and submit to a publisher and like follow it. Or maybe you're not quite sure. So either way, it's like doing this exercise is kind of a good way to practice those revision skills. Or you might not be wanting to revise at all right now because you're not done or you're working on a first draft, and that's okay too. Those resources are there all year round. We just we do a lot of messaging around them in January and February.
Yeah.
Cool.
You can do what I do and skip back and forth between projects depending on the day and how you're feeling. So.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And we can talk about that a little more later.
Yeah. Looks like some folks in the chat. There are some people who are revising now, including Medusa Locks, who's revising a novel started over a dozen years ago.
Wow.
Incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's like, they say it's good to get perspective on your work, so like you finish your first draft, you don't want to immediately, start revising because you don't have the right distance from it. But I feel like a dozen years, it's like, that's good distance.
Yeah.
I think you could probably do a great job. I love it. Catherine, anybody else? I realized I didn't have the chat pulled open, so I'm gonna do that.
I'll grab it for you. But yeah, we've got Jennifer is revising a mystery. Kate L is working on some rewrites from their Nano project. Carolyn is working on a memoir.
Cool.
Got some women's fiction. Jay's still working on their first draft. So got a lot of different stages of things here, which is fun.
That makes sense. It's always, so we try to structure these virtual write-ins so that the prompts might be useful for you no matter what you're doing, but that's kind of impossible because sometimes people are just doing super different things. So when we do the writing prompts and sprints throughout this virtual write-in, if the prompt is exciting to you, you should try it. If it's not, like, you can just work on your project in your own way, however you'd like to, and just use the time and the community instead of a prompt. That's fine too.
Yeah.
You have a perfect prompt, you know. It's hard to find.
The golden, it's like having the perfect novel idea, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of prompts, should we do one? Get our writing brains and fingers moving?
So this first prompt is just like a warm-up prompt. We're going to write for 5 minutes. And I really like lists as like warm-up prompts, just because a list is like, so, you know, you don't even need to write sentences. Like, you're just like listing things. And they can be also just like a really cool insight into your character or into yourself, or a way to find a story idea when you don't have one. So the prompt today is try writing a list either for you or for a character in your project. And the title is Lost and Found. So things that, if you're writing for if you're doing a memoir, for example, you could do this for your personal life, but if you're writing a novel, you could pick a character from the novel and do this for them. So things that you or they have lost or found in their lives, big or small. Or if that list is boring to you, choose another list, another title for your list. The only thing that's important is to try to spend these 5 minutes just like writing. Again, don't worry about sentences. It can be bullet points. It's a list. It's
yeah.
NBD.
All right. So this is a 5-minute prompt?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
You can set a timer. So 5 minutes, writing a list, either lost and found or whatever you want. I'll put it in the chat and in the video description. And writing for 5 minutes. Let's start now. Got about 2 minutes left. Okay, time is up. Go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. If you feel like sharing, feel free to put, share some of the things that were on your list in the chat, or if you want to share how many words you got during that writing sprint, feel free to share there.
And sorry, my dog's being grouchy. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you saw me disappear off screen, it's because this guy, I heard him running around upstairs, and I was like, he's getting into trouble because we're the only ones home, and I just had I had a sixth sense about it. And then I go up there, and he's gotten into the cabinet where we keep the compost underneath the sink, and he's opened the compost bin, and he's dragged compost all over the house into the backyard.
Oh no!
Wants to eat, you know. And then I thought, you're gonna have to stay in here with me, pal. But he's gonna be bad, so I'll just let him back out there and hope that the locks hold this time.
Oh goodness. I feel like that's something that belongs in a novel, though, like the dog getting compost all over the house. So.
Oh my God, except if it was this novel of our lives, it's happened so many times. We had this special lock thing, but then that worked for many years. Then last year he figured out how to open it. So now we're just like,
smart dog.
No, he's very smart. So lost and found. And then another thing that I thought we could talk about, if you're interested in, is just what do you do when you've lost energy or motivation around a project? So feel free to drop into the chat, like Catherine said, anything from your list or how it went, but also interested if you have some advice on what to do if somebody loses interest in a project or motivation.
Theoretically speaking, asking for a friend.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yes, no, obviously not. Like this just happened to me earlier this year where I finished a draft of a project. Like I revised it several times and then I was like, I don't know what to do now. It's like I forgot how to write anything else.
Yeah.
So the thing that I did for myself is I was just like, okay, well then you can stop writing, which normally I try to write every morning or I feel a little bad. But I was like, okay, just don't write. And so I just started writing in a journal instead, just doing these morning pages from the artist's way, which sometimes morning pages help me. And then I signed up for just a totally different kind of writing class. Like I'm taking this essay writing class now.
Oh, cool.
So just because I've never done that before. And I thought, I'm not going to force, I don't know, I don't think forcing it helps sometimes. So my answer to that question is to kind of give it time and then try something different in the meantime.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that also happened to me with one of my projects because I was kind of I revised the first 80 pages several times, and then I was like, okay, I'm happy with how like the first little bit of my novel is shaping up, but then like I'm really stuck on how to move forward with the next part. Like it's so much work to bring it up to the kind of the standard of like where my other pages are now. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know. One of the things, so I was feeling really stuck, and then one of the things that helped me with that was that I I gave the first 80 pages to a friend to read because they were like, "Oh, I want to read what you've written," and I'm like, "Well, these ones are fit for human eyes, so here you go." And they read it, and they're like, "Wait, I want to know the next thing," and I was like, "Well, now I have to write the next thing, I guess." So, but it did help because then I was like, "Oh, somebody's actually like waiting for the next chapter, and I have to kind of get it into a place where I feel comfortable letting them read it." So yeah, I don't know. That helped me.
Sometimes giving it to like I do not like sharing things until I think they're ready to be shared, which this project was not for like 3 years. But then you're right, I did share the first 20 pages with some people, and just hearing their excitement and questions really did help me think about it in a different way. Like I'd felt like I'd taken it as far as I could by myself. But having someone else talk about it did make me, that was exciting too, right? And I appreciate the advice in the chat, like about different, trying different things. Like Kate Ellis got into video editing last year, changing the creative medium, gave my brain a break and kept new ideas coming. Wendy Rogers says, if I lose interest in a project, I quilt or set up a small loom and write a magazine article. I might keep writing on something, if nothing else but a journal. I like this. Like, I think forcing it is, you can't force. It's like, you can force some things, but like, I don't know if you can force your brain to be creative. You can build habits.
I feel like some days you can.
Yeah.
For to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can definitely make space for it, right? Like you can be like, I don't feel creative now, but I'm going to sit down and spend 10 minutes and see how I feel. For me, at least. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a pottery class. That's my next goal, to sign up for a pottery class, because I think, just like Wendy, it seems like you're doing something else, like quilting or making something, and then that might spark some motivation too.
I saw some people in the chat there saying that that prompt helped them. Actually, Phyllis Smith said, "I was the protagonist as I write my memoir. I have been working on writing myself as a character. Several things I have lost, I have found in a new way. Great exercise." So I love that idea though of like, especially with memoirs, like writing yourself as a character.
Yeah.
Because I actually realized that recently, of like, even though I write fiction and like a lot of times it's like fantasy, like a lot of the first draft is like me writing for myself as a human, of like, oh, what do I want to explore or like figure out, or like, what do I want to get in my own brain down on the page. So I don't know.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I guess now I'm just like, half my brain is just listening. I'm in the basement, and half my brain is just like, what's he doing out there? Like, can I hear him? Is it too quiet? It's like but I may, so if I pop out again during the next chat, the next sprint is only to check to make sure that he hasn't done the exact same thing again.
We'll blame Buster.
Thank you. But so for the next prompt, we can write a little bit longer. And if you liked writing lists, like if you want to just keep working on that list, if that felt fruitful to you, like please keep doing it. But if you would like to try another thing, you could pick one of those lost or found things, and you could write the scene of losing or finding it. So if you were writing like a character for, you could you could write this as like a flashback, or you could write it as a scene in your novel, and maybe it won't make it into the final draft, but it can be helpful for world building. And if you're writing like a memoir, you could maybe one of those items had a lot of energy around it for you, and you can write the scene of that. Speaking of Buster, we found Buster. Our housemates found him on the street as a puppy. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll write that.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So is this a 10-minute prompt?
I think we can do 10 minutes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
So I will set my timer. So we've got 10 minutes picking one of the lost or found things from that list and writing a scene of how someone lost or found it. And again, you don't have to use the prompt if you don't want to, but it's there if it helps your creativity. So 10 minutes, and let's start writing now. Got about 3 minutes left. Okay, time is up for that prompt. So go ahead and wrap up what you're writing. Again, if you want to let us know how many words you got during that prompt, or maybe if you want to share a sentence or talk about like the item that you chose to write the scene about, feel free to drop that in the chat. I'm just also writing in the chat that the time is up. So
It's so funny how hard it is to stop writing when you're like really writing. Like you were talking and my brain was hearing you talk, but like just not like I love how you can really get into something and not want to get out of it. That's so cool. Yeah, so while we're waiting while we are waiting for people to drop things into the chat, I thought we could also talk a little bit about revision or editing, since that's like technically kind of the focus of our Now What months. And I was wondering if anybody, including us, if we wanted to share anything about our approach to revising or editing a project, slash if there's something that's worked really well for you that you can let us in on your secrets.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel in some ways like I still I don't know, I'm still learning what works, because I know when I first started writing and like started getting really into it, I was like, I'm going to write a sentence and I'm going to mess with this sentence until it is perfect, and then I'm going to move on and I will never revise a thing that I write. And I was in that mindset for so long, and it's kind of only in the past few years that I've really like understood that like, oh no, actually I can take this apart and put it all back together again. One
I
of the,
just
oh,
okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I just like my partner's mom, every time like she wants to talk about writing with me. Probably people want to do the same thing to you.
Yeah.
And because she wants to write and she tells me the things she wants to write. And I'm always just like, do it, and she's like, and she anyway, but the one I say that to her over and over, where I'm like, your first draft does not matter, but I think that's really hard for early writers to let go of, the idea that they can't make it perfect the first time.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's still a hard idea to let go of, even after having done it for a long time.
Yeah. For me, it's kind of freeing, like, because it's like, I don't have to worry about this,
Mm-hmm.
And then the final draft is a little harder, where I'm like, I do have to worry about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this should be perfect now.
Right.
But yeah, the first draft. One thing that helped me is I like never, like, I did NaNoWriMo. I won one time, 2012. And I kind of started trying to revise that novel way back then, and it never went anywhere. And then I kind of switched to writing short stories, and I really practiced revising on something short, like these short stories. And that was really helpful for me, because I learned like how to structure and how to, the weird quirks that I had, what I wanted to work on. And it could all happen at a much faster pace.
Mm-hmm.
Now when I've gone back and I've revised the novel that I've been working on, not the 2012 one, that one will never see the light of day, I think. It's a lot easier because I just know I have my like rhythms and my habits, and I know it can be done,
Right.
So that has been pretty useful to me.
Mm-hmm. We're getting some stuff in the chat. CB394 wrote 149 words and shared the sentence, "Tears of anger and hurt streamed down my face. I was about to lose my family." Very high moment of tension there. Kate L said they wrote 146 words of pure angst. Love it.
Also, KL, thank you for sharing this. They said, for me, I think the revision process heavily depends on the drafting method. I really like Kurt Vonnegut's swooper versus basher paradigm. I'm a swooper, so I draft messy and rewrite to coherence. And then she says bashers might be more focused on getting specific sections or chapters or scenes or sentences right before they can move on.
Oh, interesting. I think I'm a basher then.
Ooh.
Because yeah, I'm like, I don't think I can revise the whole thing until like, because if I change the beginning of it, it's going to go in a completely different direction. Actually, I think that happened with the project that I've been revising a lot. And I ended up, because I've been writing from a bunch of different perspectives, and I ended up choosing a specific kind, like I was like, okay, one chapter I'm going to rewrite it, but it's all going to be in like text messages. And like another chapter, I was like, I'm going to put a bunch of like, random like dictionary definitions in here. And another chapter, I'm like, okay, this one's going to be a diary entry. And it was a really cool and fun exercise. And I ended up being like, this is not going to be the final format of it, but then elements of it worked their way back into the next draft, and like it really helped me find the characters' voices a little bit more. And it was fun to do, to kind of think of, oh, how can I make this like weird or interesting or like a little bit like out of the ordinary. So I don't know, I guess that's my tip for revision, is like try something a little bigger or wilder than you think you would do for one of your revisions, and then you can pick and choose which ones you want to put back in when you put it back together.
That's cool. And Alexandria says, Kate L, can we be a bit of both or maybe change depending on the story? And I was actually going to say that too, because the novel that my current novel that's on its like, I don't know, third or fourth draft, I've been working on for like 3.5 years. And for me, it was the most swoopery, swooper, is that the word? I've ever been, where I wrote a first draft in a totally different voice with a totally different character perspective. And then I went in and did a second chapter or second draft with a totally different character, basically changed, some of the pieces were there, but like I really just rewrote everything. And it was wild. And I don't think that every novel, I think maybe every novel and story can be a little different depending,
Mhm.
you know. Sometimes the first draft is a lot closer to a final draft, and sometimes you just really have to, you know, try it out. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, it's cool. Also, it's horrible. Writing is so hard.
I
It's so
know.
weird to explain to someone, oh yeah, I wrote 150,000 words, but like they don't exist anymore, you know. I
Right.
had, but they were important
Yeah,
on
totally.
the way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's super weird.
Oh, this is so interesting. Wendy says, I revised the ending section first and then moved towards the beginning.
I like that. I don't do that. I like that.
I don't think I could do that. I have mad respect for you for doing that, but I don't think I could do it.
Yeah. Um, it's cool though that you know that, like, those are the things I think you learn about yourself the more you work through a
Mhm.
project all the way. Like if you've only ever started projects or written first drafts of projects, then you don't know how you do it. So you really just have to practice and like do it with short stories or do it with the first 50 words of your novel and like figure out what figure out how you do it.
Yeah.
It's cool. Um, thanks for adding those quotes. That's interesting. Now we have pantsers and
And planners.
planners. I was like,
Yeah.
I couldn't for the word, but swoopers and bashers.
I know. I was just thinking that.
It's cool. Okay, so we have one more prompt, and I think we could write for 10 or 15 minutes. Sometimes when the chat is like a little quieter or when there's fewer of us here, I think we end up having more time to write
Yeah.
because there's just fewer voices. um, so we could write for 15 if we wanted to.
Yeah. I'm down for a long prompt. I mean,
Yeah.
we could split it down the middle and do 12 or something, you know.
Yeah, let's do 12. That's weird.
Okay, let's do 12.
It's fun and a good number. I like even numbers. I have this warm feeling towards even numbers more than odds. So 12 like gives me a good feeling inside. Um, okay. So I just signed up for this writer's newsletter from this author named Matt Bell. I haven't done anything that he's told me to do yet, but I like reading them. So I kind of stole this one from him, which is to find a scene that you. So this is kind of a revision prompt, just because it's, you know, now what in revision. But again, you don't have to do it. You do whatever is speaking to you. So find a scene that you've already written. It could be the one that you were just working on, and add a bit of drama in the background. So he was talking about kind of making your world feel like a lived place. So it doesn't have to be something that disrupts the flow or main plot of the scene, you know, like nobody has to be in it. It doesn't have to be a huge fight in the background and someone gets pushed to the main character. It's more just about making your world feel like a real place where everybody in it is having a life. So like maybe there's a couple breaking up in the background, or there's a kid not listening to a parent, or this last one is specific to my husband's time working as an arborist. A ground crew struggling to haul brush that someone's cutting down from a tree. Um, so just like think about places in either a scene that maybe you wrote today or a different scene in your novel or memoir. I think if there's a place where you can add something happening in the background, totally separate, just as a way to enrich the world.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense.
if you can't, that's okay. Just keep working on the scene you were working on.
Yeah,
Honestly, I might do that because I got really into it, and then
good.
I kind of want to go back. So maybe
All
I'll do
right.
that.
Yeah. Okay, I have my timer set for 12 minutes. So let's go ahead and start writing now. At the halfway point, 6 minutes left. Got about 2 minutes left. time is up for that prompt. So again, if you want to put a sentence that you wrote or share how many words you got, either during that prompt or during the write-in as a whole, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah, my brain's still coming back from writing space as well.
Yeah, how did it go? It went good. I'm actually working on something that from the first prompt kind of sparked an idea, and this essay class that I'm in, it's like a personal essay class, and it gave me an idea. So I was like, maybe I'll try to start working on this thing. So I'm writing a really bad first draft. It's like being a brand new writer again. I'm like, I don't know how to write personal essays. Like, it feels very destabilizing in maybe a good way. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good to try new things, even though sometimes when you're like in the moment of the very first, like, I'm trying this thing and I'm not good at it yet, that can be hard. But
yeah, especially if other people have done more of it than you just have to kind of always be in like a learning position, which is good practice.
Some people were saying hi to Blobby in the chat, so he says hi back. Blobby.
Who's Blobby's friend?
That's Noodle. That's Noodle the fox. He's actually a like a neck pillow, like a travel neck pillow that my friend made me. But yeah, they've been hanging out together, so
that's great.
Yeah,
Blobby's really living his life.
Yeah, he's been enjoying his stay here. So.
I hope that some of those prompts, I thank you for sharing in the chat if some of the prompts, were working well for you. I'm glad that we could come together and write like on this Wednesday in February, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels hard to make the space in a day to like just write and be with other writers, but I always feel better afterwards. So
I know, me too. It's nice to like have the time to sit down and write, even if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to use any of this, but like my brain is more in that writing space now. So
totally. And before we go, just wanted to share, like, feel free to keep dropping on the chat things, but I wanted to share a few things so that we don't forget them. One is just reminding you that the NaNoWriMo site is active year round. You can set independent goals or challenges for yourself whenever you want. And we can put the link in the chat or below the video. So if you're like, I want to write for 2 weeks in February and I want to try to write this many words, like you can do that. Also wanting to just remind people to check out our Now What resources. The Now What webpage has a bunch of stuff you can check out, including a workbook and different, like our Now What calendar that will tell you all the events that are going on. And just for the first time ever, reminding you that if you go to the NaNoWriMo website, you'll see in the bar at the top some instructions if you'd like to kind of join our official Now What challenge on the site. So this is like a month-long challenge where we're trying to revise an amount of pages. But there's a lot of different ways you can participate. Those are just some of them. And then Catherine, I saw you added this.
Yeah, and so we also we have a lot of events going on this month actually too, and a lot of them are related to like revision and resources around that. So next week we have on Tuesday on Instagram, we're doing a Q&A with Leah Hernandez of Young Authors Publishing. So she'll be answering questions if you have questions about like how publishing works, especially for younger writers. Then I would definitely encourage you to check that out. So that'll be over on the NaNoWriMo Instagram. And then next Wednesday, same time as this write-in was actually, we're partnering with our sponsors Fictionary and Writing Mastery Academy to do a whole revision course. So they did the first webcast of this revision course series last week, where they kind of went over some revision methods, and they'll be doing part 2 of the course next Wednesday, a week from today. Well, they'll be kind of going step by step, in depth into their process. And the first one was really great. A lot of awesome information. So you can watch that one on our YouTube channel, and then you can join us live for the second one next week. And then the other thing I just wanted to make a note of is that we also had a book layout webcast scheduled for next week with a couple of designers who are going to go over, like, how to lay out a Word document if you're submitting to a contest, or like if you're self-publishing, like how do you lay out your title and paragraph fonts and all that. So that was supposed to be next week, but it's been pushed back a week. So that'll be on February 18th now. But yeah, so those are just kind of some of the really exciting upcoming events, but we have a bunch of stuff going on this month. So yeah, tune in. You can, if you're not already subscribed to our channel, you can subscribe and then get notifications when we have new videos going up and stuff like that. So yeah.
Cool. Again, thanks everyone, and hope to see you around.
Yep. Oh, wait, somebody asked about the YWP contest.
Oh, cool.
Yes, there is a contest.
Oh, so this one is for young writers. So on our Young Writers Program website, if you are a member there and you're 18 or under, we say 17 and under. 18 is okay if you're in high school. I was 18 when I was a senior in high school. So and there's more information about it there. So if you are a young writer, or if you know a young writer, it's about taking a 400-word excerpt from your NaNoWriMo novel and revising that, and then submitting that to this contest. And the prize isn't like millions of dollars in fame and fortune, but it is being published on the YWP site and the NaNoWriMo blog, and we brag about you all over our social media, and it's just a really cool way also to share a piece of your novel with the world, the NaNoWriMo universe.
All right, cool, thank you. I just saw somebody ask that question, so I wanted to make sure we got
to it. That's a good
question. Yeah, well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. It was so good to be here, and yeah, I'll see you next week at the revision course, and otherwise see you later other places.